Hope everyone's doing good today. This will be probably the first video in hopefully many of just some tips, tricks, ideas, bit of servicing, mainly stuff to do with stunt bikes, how to maintain them, and etc, etc. Exhausts. This isn't going to be about what exhausts do as such and flow and stuff like that. It's not about that. So what this is going to be about is how to make a standard exhaust, retain its baffle, shorten it a little bit, remove the cap so that you can use it for spot riding or lot riding. Why do you want to do this? Well, it's very controversial, but it's an ongoing topic that will be forever ongoing. So basically you get a non-genuine exhaust, bit of a rubbish example here. You'll end up with a straight through baffle that runs straight through one end, out the other, and then you'll have a linked pipe. So obviously you stick that on your bike, it'll sound a lot better, obviously. It'll rev off a lot nicer. You might gain a little bit of horsepower. Now, unless you're mapping the bike, or putting a dyno jet on, or something like that, you're going to lose a bit of bottom end power. Now, if you're riding the streets, it might be different. But like I say, this is more specifically aimed if you want to ride in a car park, that you want to try and keep hold of the car park. So we're trying to keep the noise down, and we're trying to keep power in the bike. But yeah, so when you're out on the streets, you're out on the road, race bike, you're using the power, you're using the top end of the revs. Obviously you want it to flow off a bit nicer. You want it to sound a bit nicer. Will do. But if you can keep the noise down, people don't get drawn to your attention. You know, it's better for everyone. So in no way am I a professional, it's just my opinion. Everyone's got a different opinion, and it's tried and tested, and it's worked many a times. So first of all, when you get a cam, it'll have a strap on it. This strap's been removed already, and it's actually been lost, so I'm going to have to make a strap. Now, depending on how you take the strap off, you may end up with holes in the cam. That's just a case of welding them up. But yeah, this is personally the way I would do a 636 can. All exhausts are different from one to the other. So unfortunately, a lot of times until you've opened your first one, you don't know what it's like inside afterwards. So on these exhausts, on the b1h 636, this is aimed at a stunt bike, you want to be going in from the bottom of the exhaust. Now these are just caps, unfortunately, but you remove the pot rivets. Unfortunately, these have already been removed, otherwise I'd show you. But basically you just drill out the centre of the pot rivet. When you do, this will slide up. Then you're left with a sealed can. We will need to run a grinder around this weld here. Then also at the top, it has a smaller pipe coming out of a big pipe. That's because that is the actual diameter of the exhaust. Obviously it doesn't look too good. So what we will do, again I'll show you in a second, we will chop this shorter, so you're using the outer can sleeve only for show. So at this point you've got the outer trim. Once you've removed the inner trim, you've got a smaller diameter followed by the outer diameter of the cover. So once you've removed this trim by drilling out the pot rivets, drill out the pot rivets on this side, it's always worth putting a mark across it. It's just easier to line up afterwards. Then obviously you want to remove that trim. And obviously that's just an outer trim. Now at this end, this is the exit end. This is a diameter trim here. What we're going to do is we're going to cut that flush with the weld, so that you're not going inside the baffle, you're just cutting the little dongle off. So you can either get a grinder, get yourself a trusty hacksaw, and you're going to be running a run, cut, straight down. Ooh. Right, so now we want to go in the bottom end. So now what you're going to need to do is run a grinder all the way around that diameter. You may or may not be able to see it. It's been welded just at the end of the cut. Once you get so far, you'll start to see a little line appear in the middle. This indicates that you've gone through the weld. So what you can then do is give the can a bit of a knock. Yeah, once you get so far, you'll find the joint will split all the way around, as you can see now. 2 layers have now split. So now what you're going to do is pull this inner part out from the outer piece. Yeah, get it all marked up and get it wiggled off. So now you've got the can, end piece chops off, ready to go. The reason I've not put the trim back on myself is because if you do get it out of line, then you can readjust this trim to suit. Just makes it a bit easier in the long run, but as long as you mark everything up, it should be good. So I've done a double mark line on mine. Ain't got to be the straightest, just because you know you can only get it out so far anyway. So marks are up, just makes it easier. Like I say, you can put it all back on the bike and go from there. So you want to split the can. Now you've run a grinder around the edge, the can started to split. Split the can. So rolling off the bench. Right, so in here is an open baffle, pretty rusty old girl. That's what it took some getting off. So baffle starts about here and it goes in and through. We want to keep that. So then basically you've now got a big chamber in here, at the open chamber. Let's get some light on it. So there is a wall inside. So now the cat would have recessed into there. So that chamber's now got that designed amount of flow. So if you take the cat off and do it the same length as the cat removed, theoretically you're not changing anything from Kawasaki's specs. So you've still got the same depth first chamber, but you've got no cat in there. So that's your aim. So the gases are going to be coming, exiting here, which is basically that far within the can. So now you've got a chamber there that's that big. So personally, you don't want to shorten the can any more than that, because if you shorten the can here, then that's just going to be forcing gas straight into a wall before it goes into the baffle. So ideally, what you want, everyone's different. The ones I've done up to now that seem to work, what I've done is remove the cap from here, take the cap, and then cut this the actual length of the cap. And once you cut that the length of the cap, slide it back on and you can go on. And now we're going to go and jam it in the vise and take it out. So now we're left with a hollow tube with no cat. The cat is left remaining. So now we're just going to linish the back, just grind it off, make it a bit nicer. Beautiful. Right, and so now we're almost there. So the cat's now been removed. Clean the face of it out so there's no sharp edges. Doesn't really matter because it's inside, but why not as we're there. So now it's a case of reattaching that to this piece if you wanted to keep it the same length, or you can shorten it. So what I recommend, what I've been doing on all of these up to now, is get the can, get the cap, and effectively you're cutting the can the depth of the cap. So mark that point. So you can just double check inside, and that is now literally the baffle starts about here. So you probably would get away with chopping it to here, but again, I wouldn't be doing that, because then you're just going to be causing the exhaust directly to be hitting the wall. So their tolerances when they set this up was for the gases to be hitting with a chamber, say, of this big. So now we've basically halved it. So the chamber itself is still the same size for the gases from the cat into the baffle. Like I say, personally, that's where I would chop. So when it comes to chopping the can, obviously we're chopping roughly here. Now, if you measure between that point and that point, you may find that your measurements will be off because this has now been ground, so it's not going to be quite right. And you want it as straight as you can. So what you want to do is measure from this point here, that line, to this point here at the end of the can. between that measurement and that measurement, do it all the way like 4 times. One on the opposite side, one on the top, one on the front, and then you can run a line of tape around there and you'll have a nice straight edge. So now we've got in black dots. We're going to run a line of tape around them. Some tape that actually sticks is nice. Yeah, beautiful. So there she is, all taped up. That should be pretty straight, you'd like to think. So now it's a case of cutting through that bad boy. Right, and we're back. Battery died on the old GoPro, so yeah, we now have a chopped can. I've just put some zinc spray on the inside of this one, just because it was quite rusty, so while I brushed it out, bare zinc spray. I had some, so I could, doesn't really matter. Right, so now, next step. So you can see on this one, a bit rusty, you've got a step between these two baffles that you've now cut through. So the old plate used to slide in up to this ridge. So now what you've got to do is recreate that with this bit. Now you can do it several ways. You can literally fold this in all the way around, because once you do button it up, the gases are going the opposite way. It won't cause too much problems. If you want to get nitty gritty, if you've got a die grinder, you can trim it and just slide that ring off. Or you can go around it with a pair of snips all the way around and then just fold them individual bits in and then chop them off. So as you should be able to see, I've now gone round, just tin snipped it all the way around on the edge. Deep, 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 deep. Now what we're going to do is bend all them tabs into just sitting at 90 degrees. And so now we have that wadding chopped out from the edge, and as you can see, that would now seat in, and you've just got that edge there. Now, like I say, you could just leave that, that will not be an issue. You could chop it out. What I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a hammer and actually burr them over inwards so that it's all just flush. But before you start doing the fiddly bits, Red Bull. Should give your motorbike some wings, isn't it? Well, say if you was doing this for someone else that you didn't like so much, you could go and weld that up. Whoever you're doing your cam for, you could literally weld a tiny little hole in there and then just weld that one over. There you go, mate, as you can. See if you've got any back pressure on that bad boy. You know what I mean? Right, and Red Bull brake over. Let's burr this sucker over. Ah, beautiful, beautiful. So we've now got lipped over and a nice edge to go round. Beautiful. So next point, check you've not left any golf balls or Barbie dolls or action men in there, and then slide the end piece on. So now you're at this point, you know, it's going to be easier to clean this edge up, so I'll just run around that on the grinder. So now I've got the edge all nice and clean, sorry about the lighting, but beautiful. Like I say, it's not the straightest edge, but now you can get it in, line it all up, and then once you've got the tack welds on, you can grind the edges flush. No one will ever know. Can is back together. It's butted in up to the till it stops where I cut that lip. So that's perfect. Check your lines again. You can't really see them. I've got a white and a black line. Pretty much bang on. So now what we'll do is we will put it in a vise, check it, like measure it from this lip here, because this is the original back plate, to the top, tack weld level it off, tack weld, level it off, tack weld, tack weld, tack weld. So if at this point you've not got a welder, I recommend you find someone with one. It's easier said than done now. You might get away with drilling the holes and re-pop riveting this on, but it may only last so long with the amount of abuse that they do take. But yeah, at this point now we're going to measure the can 14 like it was all the way around, tack weld, level it up, and then we'll run a small bead of weld around it. Yeah, with the pinholes it's just going to be a case of doing a little dot at a time and hope you can get a lug of weld on them. You want to take it real slow. Oh, that was warm. Right then, we are back. Unfortunately the GoPro decided to die as well. Not having much luck with this thing today. Right, so last point was grinding. So yeah, just get yourself an angle grinder. Grind around the welds if you need to, you know what I mean? I did. Depends on your welding. And if you're using a TIG and doing it all proper. See, I've got some zinc spray just to protect it. So then we've got the trim. Basically, slide the trim on, mark the holes, re-drill it. But what I do, I don't know, just because I can, I suppose, is I put the top trim on first, pop rivet that once I'm happy where it is, which should be in the right place, and then I can drill a hole in the same line as there, or offset it between the two, just so it looks right. I've just put a little bit of black paint in the end there, just purely because when the trimmer's on, you can see the grey, so until it carbons up. But so you got your original mark now that you're going to be thankful for, because otherwise you've got to bolt it back on the bike. Right, and then get yourself pop rivets off. Obviously get a hand clamp. Yeah, I'm lucky because I've got myself one of these that I've decided to buy, and they're flipping awesome. You want to go around the whole exhaust. Right, so now that's back on. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, some people might be moaning this is just simple stuff. If you do, I apologise, but then you've decided to watch it this long, you know what I mean? But like I say, this is to get a quiet part. It's going to not save your spot, but it's going to stop people moaning about you riding at your spot. And the benefit of this is, if you're running a stock ECU, you're not going to lose any bottom end power, etc, etc. Anyway, I'm nattering, so get this sucker back on here. We'll just line it up with the mark we just made. Got a dot punch. It's hard to drill otherwise, especially on something that's circular. Woo. So there we go, drilled. Beautiful. At that finishing point, hopefully. Well, I've probably drilled it off too quick. Yeah, so what have we done? Obviously we started off with what we saw, still looks the same, but we are now missing this bit here, which is heavier than it looks, and that, which I tell you what, you could send that, I'll tell you, some nice bit of weight to that. You've now got a reasonably stock exhaust, looks stock, sounds almost, not almost stock, they sound nice, but obviously they are a lot quieter than they normally would be. Pros and cons to all, but at the end of the day, the amount of back pressure that this retains, it just outweighs the pros and the cons for someone like myself that rides in a car park, stroking a stunt lot, especially in the UK. But not alone just especially in the UK, the fact that it keeps all that bottom end power. If you're doing a lot of idle work, and I mean on the revs, hands off the bars, stuff like that, then in my eyes, if you've got a can, at least try it. But anyway, yeah, catch you later. And if I don't see you before, safe. Yeah.